It's 6:12 a.m., coffee's hot, hands shaking, phone glowing in the dark. And there it is. Executive order. Military. Silver seized. Civilian sales banned. Your stomach drops. Because you've lived long enough to know one thing. When they say temporary, it becomes permanent. Now listen carefully. I'm not here to sell you a fairy tale. I'm here to warn you. I went looking for an official public executive order that literally says, word for word, the military seized 500 million ounces of silver, and civilian sales are banned. I did not find that exact document publicly posted. So if you're waiting for me to wave a piece of paper and say, see, it's real, I won't do that. But if you hear that and you relax, you're missing the bigger threat. Because the danger isn't one headline. The danger is the pattern. They don't need to ban something to control it. They don't need soldiers. They need levers, paperwork, priority, permission, a dimmer switch. Imagine this. You walk into your usual coin shop. Same bell above the door. Same guy behind the counter. You say, I'll take 10 ounces. He doesn't smile. He doesn't even reach for the tray. He says, I can't get it. You ask, out of stock? He shakes his head. Allocated. Allocated. That one word is a prison door closing, because it means you didn't run out of silver, you ran out of access. And the sleeping herd will laugh. They always do. They'll say, it's just a metal. They'll say, the government wouldn't do that. That's what they said about a lot of things. Silver isn't just a shiny thing. Silver isn't just a coin. Silver is wiring. Silver is solar panels. Silver is medical equipment. Silver is electronics. Silver is defense systems. Silver is the bloodstream of the grid. So when governments get scared, they don't grab coupons. They grab critical materials. And something happened recently that most people missed. Silver was officially tagged by the US government as critical, as in national security, as in we need it, as in you come second. Ah, that's not an opinion. That's a label. And labels become policies. Once something becomes critical, the market is no longer in charge. The state is. Quietly, through contracts, through who gets first dibs. And you don't get first dibs. Now let's talk history. America has done unthinkable things before. And it did them with signatures. In the 1930s, executive power was used to force metals into government channels, including silver delivery requirements for coinage. Delivery? Required. Not suggested. Not requested. Required. And during World War II, the US. Treasury loaned about 14 to losing 700 tons of silver to support the Manhattan Project because copper was scarce. 14,700 tons. Hundreds of millions of ounces. Moved. Quietly. Because the war effort wanted it. No town hall meeting, no vote, no permission slip. So when you hear a modern rumor about seized silver, even if the headline is sloppy, even if the number is inflated, the fear isn't crazy. The fear is based on precedent. And today the math is worse, the debt is worse, the desperation is worse. Around mid-January 2026, the U.S. Treasury's own running total showed public debt outstanding at about $46 trillion. $38 trillion. Now answer this, like someone who's paid bills for decades. How do you pay that back? You don't. Not honestly, not with taxes, not with speeches. So the system does what failing systems always do. It prints, it inflates, it dilutes. It turns your lifetime of saving into a melting ice cube. And you felt it. You remember when a grocery cart felt heavy. Not because it was full, not because it was affordable. Now the cart is half full, and the bill is double. Insurance up, repairs up, property taxes up, medicine up. Here's a simple back-of-the-napkin picture. At 3% inflation, prices don't just creep, they compound. In about 10 years, that's roughly a quarter of your buying power gone. In about 20 years, you're staring at almost half. Half. Imagine trying to live the same life with half the purchasing power. Same house, same prescriptions, same groceries, but everything costs twice as much. And the cruel joke is this. Your statement still shows the same number of dollars. So it feels safe until you try to use it. That's why retirees feel it first. Because inflation is a tax that never votes. It just arrives every month, like a bill you didn't agree to. Now picture one ordinary day. You're driving to pick up prescriptions. You stop for gas. The pump clicks. You swipe. Declined. Not because you're broke, because the bank flagged unusual activity. You call. You're on hold. 10 minutes. 20. 40. Meanwhile, the meter in your life keeps running. That's not convenience. That's vulnerability. And the people in suits smile and say, inflation is easing. Even if inflation is only a few percent year after year. What happens to a retiree on a fixed income? It's death by 1,000 cuts. Your dollars buy less. Your savings earn less. Your comfort shrinks. And retirees don't get the luxury of time. If you're 30, you can rebuild. If you're 55, you can hustle. But if you're 65, 70, 75, You can't run faster on a treadmill that's speeding up. Now let's put a spotlight on the biggest promise in America: Social Security. The trustee's own projection says the combined trust funds are expected to hit a wall in the mid-2030s. And at that point, incoming taxes would cover only about 81% of scheduled benefits. 81%. That's their polite way of saying a cut. Not because you did something wrong, because the machine is broke, and when the machine is broke, it starts squeezing. Imagine this. It's 2034. You're older. You move slower. You're on more medications. Your costs didn't go down. They went up. And then the deposit hits your account. Smaller. No apology, no debate, just smaller. And the television smiles and says, it's necessary. Necessary for who? Not for you. For the corrupt system that promised comfort while building a trap. Now here's the hidden mechanism most people never see until it bites them. When the system is short on money, it prints. When the system is short on trust, it controls. And when the system is short on real materials, it prioritizes itself. That's why critical minerals matter. And the government doesn't need a dramatic ban to starve the civilian market. There are federal priority systems used for defense and emergency orders, front-of-the-line orders. Translation? If contractors get first claim on supply, you get what's left, if anything. That's rationing in a suit. No posters. No lines on the sidewalk. Just a supply chain that suddenly says no. Now, let's talk about that viral number again. 500 million ounces. Why does that number stick in your brain? Because it feels possible, so whether that headline is true or not, it's pointing at a truth the herd refuses to accept. They can redirect it, they can absorb it, they can choke access, and they can do it fast. And here's the part that should make your skin crawl. They don't need one big dramatic move, they do 3 small ones. First, they classify critical, strategic, or national security. Second, they prioritize. They move the supply to contractors and agencies. Third, they punish behavior with forms, with thresholds, with limits, with for your protection. Because here's how control works today, not with a knock on the door, with an update, with a policy change, with a terms of service screen you click without reading, with a temporary restriction. They don't have to take what you already have, they just have to stop you from getting more. So let's force the future into focus. Imagine this. A major bank has an incident, cyber, liquidity, whatever word they choose. The government steps in and says, we're protecting depositors. Then your app changes. Withdrawal limits, transfer delays, extra verification, fraud prevention. Sounds responsible, feels safe, until you realize something. If you need your money today, you're asking permission for your own money. And then someone says, relax, FDIC insurance. Yes, there's FDIC coverage up to $250,000 per depositor, per bank, per ownership category. But it doesn't protect you from what matters most to retirees: time and purchasing power. Bills don't wait, medicine doesn't wait, rent doesn't wait, and FDIC doesn't insure the value of the dollar. It insures the number of dollars. If the system saves you by paying you back in watered-down currency, you were rescued onto a lifeboat full of holes. Or imagine your neighbor. Good man, worked 40 years, did everything right. His grandson needs help. Emergency car repair, 2 states away. He tries to wire a few $1,000s. The screen spins, then, pending review. He drives to the branch. They tell him politely, for your security, large transfers can take 72 hours. 72 hours. In real life, that's forever. Now, take that same system and add panic. Add headlines, add shortages, add a government that just labeled silver critical. Suddenly, your plan to wait and see turns into your worst mistake. Because the moment the herd wakes up, the exits jam, the lifeboats vanish. Now you say, fine, I'll move into hard assets. You go online to buy silver, and the message isn't sold out, it's worse, restricted. Allocation priority, unavailable, not because the earth ran out, because the system grabbed the lifeboats first. And the sleeping herd will cheer. They always do. They'll say, good, stop the speculators. They'll say, it's for national security, because they've been trained to clap for their cage. But you're not here to clap. You're here to survive. Now let's talk about the bigger cage, money that lives only on screens. Everything digital feels convenient until convenience becomes control. A number can be tracked, frozen, denied. Direction matters. Less cash, more rules, more compliance. And when the next crisis hits, those tools get used. That's the trap. They push everyone into paper. Then they devalue the paper. Then they restrict the exits. Stocks, a casino, bonds, paid back in shrinking dollars. Bank accounts, a promise. And retirees get hurt first because you can't work more hours at 70 You can't wait 10 years for a recovery when you need a roof repair now. So here's the sentence that makes the herd angry. If your retirement plan depends on politicians keeping promises, you don't have a plan, you have hope. And hope is not a strategy when the Titanic is taking on water. Now let's make this painfully simple. The safest asset in a world of broken promises is the asset that is not someone else's liability. Counterparty risk. If your asset requires someone else to perform, someone else to pay, someone else to stay solvent, you have counterparty risk. Bank deposit, counterparty risk, pension, counterparty risk, brokerage statement, counterparty risk, even paper silver products, counterparty risk. Because in a real crisis, the fine print comes alive, and it bites. Physical metal is different. It is not a promise. It is not a contract. It is not an app. It is value you can hold. That's why gold and silver outlive governments. Now, understand the real purpose. This isn't about getting rich. This is about not getting wiped out. It's survival, freedom, bearer assets. It's you becoming your own central bank. Because when you hold physical metal in your own possession, you're not asking permission. No system outage, no bank holiday. No, your transaction is under review. It just works. And here's a hard truth. The system can freeze accounts. It can delay transfers. It can change the rules. But it cannot print silver. It cannot print gold. It can only chase it, regulate it, restrict it, which is why it will. So yes, silver can be volatile. Yes, premiums can spike. Yes, dealers can run out. And that's exactly why the time to act is before the herd panics. Because when the herd panics, there's only scarcity and regret. And the cruelest part? In a panic, even people with money can't get what they want. Because money is not the problem, access is. So let's bring it back to the question everyone whispers. Are they going to ban civilian silver? They may never use the word ban. They'll call it reporting. They'll call it verification. They'll call it compliance. They can restrict supply through priorities. They can pressure refiners. They can redirect industrial silver. They can call it emergency authority. And the civilian market dries up like a puddle in August, quietly, no headline needed. That's why the viral story matters even if it's imperfect. It's a flare in the night, because the conditions for control are already in place. Silver is labeled critical, debt is exploding, entitlements are strained. This isn't a theory, this is math. Now, I want to hit you with math that feels personal. If inflation averages just 3% a year for 10 years, your purchasing power drops hard. That means your safe savings account is a slow leak. And leaks sink boats. Imagine this. You're 5 years into retirement. You planned carefully. You did everything right. Then you get hit with 2 bad years back to back, a market drop, a new wave of inflation, a benefits cut, a new tax, and suddenly the margin disappears. That's when stress shows up in your chest. That's when sleep disappears. And that's when the system offers you a solution, a program, a new wallet, a stability package, all with strings. And the herd will sign. Because they're scared. But the awakened few, they prepare before the offer arrives. Because the offer is never free. Now I'm going to say something that might make you uncomfortable. Good. If you wait until the government announces restrictions, you waited too long. Because restrictions are not the beginning of the crisis. They're the middle. They're what happens after the insiders already moved. That's why insiders buy quietly, before the rush, before the shortage, before the rules change. You don't have to be wealthy to think like an insider. You just have to be early. And early doesn't mean reckless. It means building a foundation that does not depend on the system behaving. It means holding some of your savings outside the banking chain. It means having assets you can touch. Because in a real emergency, the thing that matters most is not rate of return. It's control. Control of your choices. Control of your timing. Control of your dignity. So ask yourself 3 questions. If the bank says no for a week, what breaks first? Your comfort, your schedule, or your dignity? If Social Security gets trimmed, what do you cut? Food, heat, medicine? If the market drops hard, do you have time to wait it out? Or do you become a forced seller at the bottom? Those are ugly questions, but they are the right questions. Now let's close the loop on the fear you felt at the start. That headline, that punch in the gut. It did its job, it woke you up. But fear alone is useless. Fear without action becomes paralysis. So here's the simple action. Take inventory. How much of your wealth exists as numbers on screens? How much depends on banks staying open? How much depends on politicians keeping promises? Then ask the only question that matters. If one link breaks, what happens to me? Imagine this. You're at the kitchen table. Bills stacked, news blaring, markets red, and you open a drawer. Not for a password, not for a bank card, not for permission. You reach for something real, something the system can't print, something the system can't update. something that still works when trust doesn't. That's what physical metal is. A lifeboat. And lifeboats are useless if you wait until the ship tilts. So don't wait. Not because you're panicking, because you're paying attention, because you're not the herd. You're the awakened few. And you refuse to be the last person holding paper in a paper fire. Subscribe to Currency Rewind if you want to survive what's coming. Not for entertainment, for warning. Because the next moves will not be announced politely. They will be rolled out. Packaged as protection, sold as safety, and the people who didn't prepare will call it sudden. It won't be sudden. It will be the final click of a dimmer switch that's been turning down for years. One last time. Imagine this. 5 years from now, you're calmer because you acted early. You don't need permission to buy groceries. You don't need to beg a bank for your own money. You don't need to pray the government keeps a promise. You have something real in your control. That's the difference between fear and power, between the herd and the awakened, between being managed and being free. Choose free while you still can.